Hi, this is Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California. Here today to teach you how to do flying lizard. There seems to be a whole lot of this going on, especially on Instagram. And so let's see how we actually put this one together. In order to start, this is a little bit of a flexibility play. So we want to make sure that we've got nice open hips. So in order to prepare for a flying lizard, how about we do a lizard? So, coming onto your yoga mat, take a nice deep lunge. So your front knee is approximately 90 degrees. Remember, you never want your knee to go past your ankle. And moving your right foot to the right about 2 inches so your shoulders can stay square to the inside. See if you can get your forearms down to the floor, sinking into your hips, but not into your shoulders. So you want to keep the chest wide open. So it's almost like I'm moving forward with my chest, but backwards with my leg at the same time. So it's like a little lizard tug of war. And you know that if you pull off a lizard's tail, it will grow a new one anyway. So you're going to be okay. Now here's the thing. If you can only get like one elbow down, try not to do it. You want to keep things symmetrical. So if you need to, put blocks underneath your elbows. I didn't bring blocks today, and so rather than taking my usual journey into the closet, I'm just going to do imaginary blocks like this. But if you can, forearm comes down. Notice how I melt into my chest. And for right now, my knee is going to hug towards my shoulder. It's an awesome stretch for opening up that right hip. We're going to need that for our flying lizard. And just for a view on the other side, as I come down, another way you could take this would actually be to drop your hip to the floor. This will take it, in some instances, a little bit deeper into the hip, but if you can't even get there, it might just inhibit everything altogether and nothing might happen. But this is also a really nice way to get super low into this pose. So take some breaths here. Watch the knee that's going to want to collapse out. Let's keep it hugging in for now. And then, can you move the foot back in? And here's the key, folks. Snuggle your shoulder way under your leg. And can you get both forearms to the floor? Now, with the this side arm, my left arm in this scenario, to the outside of the leg. Okay? What this is going to do is it's going to teach me how to begin to put pressure with my shoulder into my leg. So one of the main keys to being able to do this pose is to understand that the more I press into my arm, the more I lift up, right? Equal and opposite reaction. So the front leg, we're going to try to keep it super active because when we come into our flying lizard, there's a tendency to get sort of collapsy. Why? Because when I'm in this pose, let's say I'm not very flexible and my leg is just on my elbow and I bend my knee, I'm going to wind up, let's do it this way, with very little clearance off the floor, like an inch. And so it becomes very important to be able to get that knee above your shoulder. You got to get that big squish. So, a lot like coming into bhuja pidasana, if you take your hand behind your calf and push, it helps you to get your shoulder under. Now at first, my spine will round to come under. That's fine, it can extend later. So I squish and get as much of my shoulder under as possible. Now with my hands down, see how bent my elbows are? If I can keep my knee hugging into my shoulder, all I do is press into the floor. And if I move my foot to the left, look how much more clearance I have now. Right? Because two things are now coming into play. One, my leg is on my shoulder, which is further from the floor than my elbow. So just straightening my arm is going to lift me higher. But two, and I talk about this in some of my other videos, when the foot goes towards the opposite side, diagonal lines hit the floor slower than vertical lines. So you don't even have to understand what the hell that means. Just know that the more you diagonal, the more me naturally off the floor, and I can move my foot over to accentuate the lift. So first thing you want to try is just getting that lift. Make sure your foot can come off the floor and moving it to the side. Now I'm going to be playing with some various exits. I'm not really going to get into the exiting part so much, other than when I look online, people are showing how to get in, but nobody's saying, like, well, what do you do now? Because it is a little bit awkward sometimes coming out. So let's come back into this. I squish, see how much I'm pressing in. I push, and I bring it over. Now, see how my energy is running from my head to my foot, my lizard tail, in a diagonal downwards. That means my momentum is down. It's pushing my leg into the floor. I need to shift that. So instead of my diagonal going this way, pushing my leg down, I need to move it this way, pulling my leg up. And I do that by melting my chest, right? Because I'm coming in sort of round. I'm going to melt my chest so that with my head low, my leg has an opportunity to come high. But remember also, there's a plane of symmetry that whatever's in front needs to balance out whatever is in back. So in order to get my heavy back leg off the floor, I'm also going to have to move my chest forward. So I'm going to go from round to extended. So I come in, I squish, I'm going to lean forward, 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 dropping my chest. And you see how there's just like a natural teeter-totter action that sort of takes me into it. Why? Because there's a balancing point. And if I get enough energy to that side, this side will have no choice but to lift. So let's give your leg no choice. Now keep in mind, your front leg is not just hanging out. It's A, hugging the arm with the knee, B, pressing into the arm with the hamstrings, and C, in some instances, clamping around onto the arm, grabbing onto it for dear life. So what these three things do is they stabilize and they lift. So again, from this side, I come under. See how my shoulder is way under, but my spine is round. I'm going to have to get rid of that. I lift, pull the foot over strongly, and see how I don't jump, I just tip into this. And then if I want to, just as an exit, I'm going to bring this leg around, take it into my Ashtavakra, pull it through, and take my vinyasa. Now, again, I'm not really going to get into the exits right now because this is going to make this a really long video. It's already going to be a pretty long video. But just know you can play with how you come in and out of this one. So that's my first entry, is going to be from my lunge. Now the second entry I recommend is actually from bhuja pidasana. Why? Because flying pigeon is actually, not pigeon, lizard, sorry. I don't even think flying lizard is a real pose. I'm only doing this because everybody wants to know how to do it. Usually I only try to stick with more classical poses, but whatever, flying lizard. Okay, flying lizard is in essence Ekapada bhuja pidasana, meaning one leg pose of the shoulder pressure. So now, we're going to do that same squish, but now we're going to do it from the front of the mat. So I come in through my legs, and I'm going to squish one, and then the other. And I'm always surprised how many people like to skip this part, or they just go like this. And if you don't have that push, you're just sort of hanging, you don't got much to work with. So I squish, squish. Now this is shoulder pressure. My hands come down, I sit down, feet come midline. Now can you see how this is sort of the same thing we just did, only with two legs at the same time? So I'm going to release my top foot. Now when I bring it around, I need to find that tipping point again. You can see my tush is very heavy here. Not because any comments about my tush, please no comments about my tush, but because there's too much behind me. I'm going to have to even that out. So I can take my front leg, and as it comes around, this leg is going to continue to hug and press to take me back into my lizard. And then, voila, I'm back where I started. Now you can see how there's not a lot of clearance. I'm very, very low on this. And so, no matter what the question, the answer is always core. Your core has to engage like crazy. A, to bring the leg in. B, to have any sort of mobility in it. And C, to sustain the pose in the first place. Because you do have something very heavy behind you. That leg is not a light and floaty thing. You need to create the lightness and create the floatiness. So let's take this from half crow and half bhuja pidasana. Okay? I think even though this isn't a classical pose or a classical entry, how'd you have classical entry to a pose that's not classical, but whatever. I think this is probably the easiest way to come in. So this time, I'm going to put one foot in front and one in back. So I'm in approximately a heel to toe alignment, and this isn't as scientific as it may sound, so do what you need to. This back leg is my crow leg, this front leg is my bhuja pidasana leg, which means I squish. Again, see how repetitive this is getting? My hands come down so they're parallel to each other. My back leg comes into crow. Okay, so I'm in the squishy crow, and then I bring it in. So I'm in my half and half pose. So my back leg is more or less ready to go. This front leg is exactly where it needs to be. Remember that it's aiming for my opposite shoulder. And this time, I'm going to lean forward again, see if I can lift from my core to get this back leg behind me. I can actually push my ankle into my wrist in front to make this more stable. And as I lift, I can take it into my vinyasa again. Of course, any movements backwards are very core intensive. So do your core. I've got some ab challenges if you need help with that. Okay, we're going to go over one more entry, and this entry is from downward facing dog. This one I would say is the hardest, not because the alignments are that much different, but just because it's a little harder to get the clearance because you don't get to shove in there, right? You don't have anything to like push into to get your leg up there. You got to just stick it. You got to land it. But something that's interesting about this is this is basically the same entry point, same arm and leg position as the vinyasa, which is sort of like your side. Well, I mean, it's a pose dedicated to Lord Vishva, but whatever. It's like that side, like, well, you'll see, I'll do it. So remember that when we're working with vinyasa, you always want to find the similarities between whatever you're doing and wherever you're going, and it makes your fluidity, well, a lot more fluid. Because what's fluidity if you don't have fluid? You know what I mean? Okay, so my leg will come up, and I want to have a very strong rotation. So my toes basically face upwards on this one. That's going to give me the clearance. If my toes face down, I'm going to hit the ground when I come forward. So do it on the left, then I'll do it on the right so you can see a little better. So my toes go up. I can even open my hip as my leg comes in. I wrap it around. This is my vinyasa, right? Although I can straighten that bottom leg. But I go forward. Again, look how low my chest is and how high my leg is, because I'm creating like a balance line of energy. My foot can come down. This time, leg goes straight, taking it into my full pose. And again, vinyasa if you want to. Pidasana. And vinyasa. Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole thing, I just want to show you one more time. As I lift up and the toes come around, I'm going to wrap the leg around the arm. Boom. Lift up, wrap it in, whatever. You get it? Sorry, I don't feel like doing this one again. This is Shana Meyerson, hoping that helps you to find your very own flying lizard. Because you can't live without a flying lizard. Have an awesome day.